So this is your class on electrical laboratories. In the measurement and instrumentation laboratory, you were supposed to perform certain experiments, one of which is calibration of wattmeter with DC potentiometer, with the help of DC potentiometer. Now, I don't know whether you remember the theory of DC potentiometer or not. You have studied it in your instrumentation course. All right. And there may be a chance that you have also studied it in your higher secondary course, a preliminary form of DC potentiometer. Higher secondary means the school living course. Am I correct? Have you studied
Yes,
this
sir.
primitive version of DC potentiometer there? Yes. Oh. Can you see the material that I have projected? The drawing is very faint. Anyway, can you see it?
No, sir.
You cannot see it. Why? I am presenting it.
Sir, it is showing share your new meeting, copy this link when it's the Google Meet page which is being shared.
Just 1 minute. Oh yes, sorry. Now it's visible, I think. I mean, take some time, it will be visible.
Yes, sir, now it's visible.
So that is the title of the experiment. Calibration of wattmeter with DC potentiometer. So here you are supposed to calibrate a dynamometer type wattmeter with the DC potentiometer, with the help of DC potentiometer. First of all, let me point out that these days, so far as analog power meters are concerned, all the wattmeters are of dynamometer variety, so far as analog power meters are concerned. So although it is written dynamometer type wattmeter, even if I wrote simply wattmeter, that would have meant a dynamometer type wattmeter. I am talking about the analog variety with the help of DC potentiometer. So you may recall that DC potentiometer is a device with the help of which we can measure small DC voltages up to about 1.8 volt to 2 volt, around that. If you want to measure relatively large voltage, some auxiliary device has to be used in conjunction with the DC potentiometer. That auxiliary device is definitely is the potential divider, which is known as volt ratio box. It is a resistive potential divider with the help of which you scale down the voltage that you want to measure. Suppose you want to measure a voltage of 200 volts. So you scale it down to the range of the voltage that this DC potentiometer can allow with the help of this voltage ratio box. And then you measure it with the help of DC potentiometer, multiply it with the voltage ratio box multiplying factor to get the actual voltage. What does the DC potentiometer consist of? Just there is a standard cell dial, a dial that is labeled as standard cell dial. It is a resistive element. All right. Then there are two other resistances that are used for measurement purpose, coarse dial and fine dial. Coarse dial consists of several segments of resistances. Say there are tappings. There is a single resistance from which there are tappings. All right. So this wiper can change position from one tapping to another. It has to be done manually. And then there is the slide wear, which is the fine dial. So by rotating a knob, you can adjust the position of this wiper on the fine dial. Now, standard cell dial, what is the advantage of DC potentiometer compared to other voltage measuring devices? Can you tell me? Do you remember? Compared to a voltmeter, an indicating voltmeter, what is the advantage of DC potentiometer?
Sir, DC potentiometer acts on null condition.
So what? You're right. So what?
So it can measure the actual potential, not the voltage drop. Actually, there is no voltage drop in the resistances. So it can actually measure the potential of a cell.
Yes, that is true. What he has said is correct. It employs a null method of measurement, where the voltage that you want to measure is balanced against a known voltage, accurately known voltage, indicated by, the balance is indicated by a null detector, DC galvanometer. Therefore, under balanced condition, you can easily understand that the potentiometer does not draw any current from the voltage source whose voltage you want to measure. Because it doesn't draw any current, there is no consequent voltage drop, internal voltage drop in the voltage source. If you had used a voltmeter, what would have happened? The voltmeter would have measured the actual voltage of this voltage source minus the internal voltage drop within the voltage source, which is actually the voltage drop across the Thevenin resistance. Any voltage source, it can be represented by a Thevenin voltage and in series with that a Thevenin resistance. So because the potentiometer under balanced condition doesn't draw any current, there is no voltage drop across that Thevenin resistance. So the voltage that you want to measure is accurately measured in that sense. There is another reason. Here, the voltage that you want to measure, it is compared with a standard voltage. You can see here that there is a standard cell. So first the potentiometer is standardized so that all the voltage markings that you can see here, they are valid. When will they be valid? When a particular working current, a fixed value working current flows through these resistances. It is arranged in that way. As for example, if you observe the standard cell dial, between this point and the position of the wiper, what is the range of the voltage that can be there? 1.016 volt to 1.028 volt. So what you do right at the beginning, so because it is compared with a very accurately known voltage, that of the standard cell, that also guarantees accuracy of measurement. So by not drawing a current from the voltage source, the potentiometer has an advantage. Over and above that, because the voltage is compared with a standard cell voltage, that is a second point in favor of the DC potentiometer. So when you use the DC potentiometer, there are two steps. So first what you do, anyway, we come to the potentiometer. First what you do is that you standardize the potentiometer. That means by switching on this working battery or working electronic supply, you adjust the position of these wipers on the rheostats so that a working current of 10 milliampere flows through these resistances. The standard cell dial, the coarse dial, the fine dial, all in series. A current of 10 milliampere flows through these resistances. 10 milliampere is a standard value. So when a current of 10 milliampere flows through these resistances, all the voltage markings that are there, the 0 to 0.1, etc., they will be valid. All right. But you don't, how do you understand that you are injecting a current of 10 milliampere through these resistances? Not by you reading any ammeter. But what is done is in the standardization phase is that the switch is in the standardized position, this switch. So the standard cell gets connected to the potentiometer circuit. The standard cell, it's a cadmium cell, cadmium sulfate, mercurous sulfate, etc. You have studied it. So it gives a very stable voltage of 1.0186 volts at 20 degrees centigrade. If the temperature to which the cell is exposed is something else other than 20 degrees centigrade, there is a definite correction formula. All right, that formula is given here in your instruction sheet. You read the temperature from some thermometer, the room temperature, and using this formula, ET equal to 1.0186 minus 404 into T minus 20 volts. So in case of standard cell, not only is the voltage accurately known, but its pattern of variation with temperature is also accurately known. So such a standard cell is connected to this potentiometer when the switch is in the standardized mode. So you obtain ET, that standard cell voltage at T degrees centigrade read from a thermometer. You adjust the position of this Y part. Say if it comes out as 1.0184 volt. So you adjust the position of this Y part such that it is at the 1.0184 volt mark. So when that is the case, now what do? You vary the current that is driven from the working supply through these coils by adjusting the position of this Y part. And this null detector is in series. So when this null detector indicates null position, zero deflection, you can understand that the voltage between this point and that point is 1.0186 volt. That means you have been able to impress a voltage of 1.0184 volts to balance the standard cell voltage. So that means you are certain that you have been able to inject that working current of 10 milliampere through this combination. Now your standardization is over. You throw this switch to the test position. When you throw the switch to the test position, the galvanometer with the sensitivity adjustment resistance is connected here in series. And here you have a commutator. There is a selector switch. You can connect to this switch 3 voltage sources. One between +1 and -1, another between +2 and -2, another between +3 and -3. Here the position of the selector switch says that you have connected a voltage. There is a voltage source between +2 and -2. So that voltage source will get connected to this circuit. So once you connect that voltage source to this circuit, what do? You adjust the position of these wipers on the coarse dial and the fine dial. The deflection of the galvanometer will change. Actually, there is a tap key in the series which is not shown here. The tap key is gradually tapped or pressed intermittently to find out whether the galvanometer is showing any deflection or not. And at the same time, this position of the wiper on the coarse dial and the fine dial, they are adjusted until you find that this galvanometer has indicated zero, null, indicated zero deflection. Under that condition, you read the coarse dial value and the fine dial value. And from these two values, you add up to get the voltage of this unknown voltage source connected between +2 and -2. You understand? This is the way. Now, if you want to measure the voltage of the voltage source connected between +1 and -1, You change the position of this dial, of this selector switch. Standardization, you need not do it. You change the position of this selector switch to +1 and -1. Again, you do this balancing act and get the null state of the galvanometer. So now the wiper positions will give you a reading of the voltage source connected between +1 and -1. In this way, the measurement proceeds. The series resistance, what is the role of the series resistance? When the potentiometer is highly unbalanced, under that condition, this series resistance is set to a high value so that there is no large current flowing through the galvanometer when it is connected to the circuit. Now, as you approach balance, this series resistance value, it is gradually decreased to increase the sensitivity or deflection of the galvanometer. So that is the intention of providing this series switch. So this is the principle obtained. Now, when you are measuring very low voltages, you cannot straight away obtain this reading to give the voltage value. Then you have a selector switch. That resistance R1 and resistance R2, they are so selected that you have studied in your theory. They are so selected that for position 1 of this range selector switch, the coarse dial and fine dial readings, simply they will give you the unknown voltage value. But when the switch is in position 0.1, this position, range selector KR, then the coarse dial reading plus fine dial reading, they have to be, sum has to be multiplied by 0.1 to get the unknown voltage value. All right, that is required only when the voltages that you are measuring, they are very low. We will use that in our experiment. So this is the principle. Now coming back to when you are trying to measure a voltage in our experiment, you are required to measure a voltage of the order of 100 volts. How will you measure 100 volts here? You cannot directly do it. Simply a resistive potential divider is used, which in this case is called voltage ratio box, to step down that 100 volts voltage to a value that can be accommodated in the potentiometer, that the potentiometer can allow. So here there is a realistic drawing of the voltage ratio box. There are several tappings on the input side, meaning that when you connect a voltage source between the two extreme points, if that voltage value, maximum possible value is 750 volts, if that is the case, then across these output terminals, you get a value of 1.5 volt. That means across the two extreme terminals, you cannot apply a voltage greater than 750 volts. That is the first point. Secondly, if the voltage is less than equal to 750 volts, then the voltage will be scaled down in this ratio, 750 is to 1.5 volt. So you can easily understand if it is 600, if it is around 600 volts, what will be the voltage value, isn't it? You can easily understand that 1.5 by 750 into 600. But these are the conventional tapping voltages. We will use that. Now coming back to the wattmeter, what is meant by calibration of the wattmeter? The wattmeter has a scale, and you want to find out whether that graduations on the scale, they are correct or not, or what are the measurement errors at salient points on the wattmeter scale, at the marked points on the wattmeter scale. The wattmeter that is considered here has a range of 0 to 100 watts, basic range. Then there can be multipliers, 0 to 100 watt. So there are graduations, there are markings of 10 watt, 20 watt, 30 watt, like that. So when you calibrate the wattmeter, you find out the error in measurement at those values. When it is indicating 10 watt, Whether it is actually true wattage is 10 watt or not, that you have to find out. When it is indicating 20 watts, whether the actual wattage is 21 watt or not, you have to find out. And if it is not, you have to find out the error in this every case. That is the intention. Now here, what is the, if you use the potentiometer to calibrate the wattmeter, what is the simplest possible arrangement? Let me just point out. So this is the wattmeter current coil. The potential coil or voltage coil is here in series with a high resistance. So all these things are there inside the wattmeter. We don't have access to those things. We have access to the two terminals of the current coil and the two terminals of the potential coil. One of the terminals, one terminal of current coil is marked with plus minus sign. One terminal of the potential coil, not the potential coil, but this series combination of the potential coil is marked as plus minus. So when you use this wattmeter in practice, you short these plus minus marked terminals together. Other end of the other end of the current coil goes to the load circuit, and other end of the potential coil goes to the other end of the load circuit. So the voltage that appears across the potential coil circuit, I am saying potential coil circuit, meaning the series combination, that voltage is the supply voltage. And if you ignore the voltage drop across this current coil, it is the voltage across the load. And yes, so the current coil carries this load current. If you recall the construction, the principle of operation of dynamometer type instrument, you will remember that in case of dynamometer type instruments, there are two fixed coils, two coils fixed in position. So those coils are connected in series, and the series combination is used as the current coil. The movable coil, it is used as the potential coil. Why is it so? Why is it so? Why don't we do the reverse thing? That is because the current coil is, is required to carry a relatively large current. Say 1 ampere, 2 ampere, like that, 0.5 ampere. But the potential coil circuit, that should simply have a very high resistance, so that the current through this potential coil, like the resistance of voltmeter, it is not appreciable. So because a large current, the current coil should carry a large current, therefore it is used as the combination of the two fixed coils, that is used as the current coil, the series combination. But if you had used the potential coil, the movable coil as the current coil, what would have happened? The conductor cross section required for the movable coil would have been larger. So that would make it heavy. Not only that, connections are to be taken to the terminals through thick conductors. So that is a problem. There is a mechanical problem. There would have been a mechanical problem if you had used the movable coil as the current coil. So that's why the fixed coil series combination, that is the current coil, and the movable coil in series with this resistance, this is the potential coil circuit. Now, what we can do if you want to use a potentiometer is that there is a load. So this is the voltage ratio box, the potential divider. Say in our case, the supply voltage, we will be using the wattmeter at 100 volts, 1 ampere rating. That means 100 watts. So the supply voltage is 100 volts. So we have to scale it down to a voltage that can be measured by a potentiometer. So that is V1. And that from V1 you can use the multiplying factor to get the actual supply voltage or actual voltage across load. How will you get the current? Current is simply obtained by placing in series a standard low valued resistance, capital R, and measuring the voltage drop across this resistance. So current through this load that would have been obtained as V2 by R. So V1 is into multiplier ratio of the voltage ratio box that will give you the voltage across the load, and V2 divided by R will give you the load current. Now you may keep the load variable. Say if the load is variable. So with 100 volts impressed here, and that means here 100 volts, the voltage of around 100 volts impressed there, you can change the load resistance value. If we are interested in this range of 100 watt at 100 volt 1 ampere rating, then to make the wattmeter read 20 watts, we should adjust the load so that current is by voltage ratio box ratio to get the actual voltage across this load. We measure V2 by a potentiometer divided by R to get the load current. Product of this load current and the voltage, true wattage. So true wattage may be instead of 20.1 watt. Get the error for the wattmeter at 20 watt. You can calculate the error. Then you again change the load current so that the wattmeter reads 40 watt. When it reads 40 watt, what will be the load current? Around 0.4 ampere. So 0.4 ampere is flowing here. I am not using any ammeter. Again, I measure the voltage V1 to get the voltage across the load, and voltage V2, that divided by R will give you this new current close to 0.4 ampere. So when you get the accurately measured value of this current and this voltage across the load, then you get a wattage value. So instead of 40 watt, it may come out as 40.3 watt or 39.2 watts, like that. Someone is trying to enter. Let me just admit him or her. All right. But what is the problem with this arrangement? The problem with this arrangement is that, just see that the range of the wattmeter is 0 to 100 watt. So suppose we want to calibrate it. Obviously, we have to go up to 100 watts. So when the wattmeter is reading 10 watts, the load is actually consuming 10 watts, isn't it? That is being measured by the wattmeter. When it is reading 20 watts, the load is consuming 20 watts. When it is reading 30 watts, the load is consuming 30 watts. When it is reading 100 watts, the load is consuming 100 watts. So a large power during the calibration, quite some power has to be drawn from the supply. So the expenditure of electricity is quite considerable. Particularly in a testing lab, if you have some series of wattmeters being tested throughout the day, that will be a very, the electricity bill will be higher because the power is being consumed by this load, actually consumed by this load. And what is the way out? Way out is to go for what is known as phantom loading. What is this phantom loading? What we do here, just see, this is the potential coil circuit that is supplied from this stabilized DC supply for voltage circuit. So it is supplied at 100 volts, the rated voltage of the wattmeter. And this current coil is supplied from a low voltage source. So if you have a voltage around 100 volts here, then in this current coil circuit, if you inject a current of 0.2 ampere by adjusting this rheostat, and what will happen? The wattmeter will, what the wattmeter reads, the current to the current coil multiplied by the voltage across the potential coil circuit. So voltage is maintained at around 100 volts. Now if you make the current 0.2 ampere, the wattmeter will read 20 watts. But will actually be 20 watts consumed from the supplies? It won't be. This voltage E1 from which the current coil is supplied, say its voltage is around 2 volts. Consider the extreme case. The wattmeter is reading 100 watts. If you had used a physical load as indicated earlier for calibration, then when the wattmeter reads 100 watts, it means that the physical load actually consumes 100 watts. But here what will happen? Voltage across the potential coil circuit is around 100 volts. You have to inject a current of 1 ampere through this current coil. So 1 ampere into 100 volts will give you 100 watts. But wattmeter will indicate 100 watts. But what is the wattage actually consumed from the two supplies? One supply is the voltage source, low voltage source E1, 2 volt voltage source. Another is the voltage source that feeds the potential coil circuit. First of all, see for this current coil circuit, when the current coil carries a current of 1 ampere into 2 volt, in this circuit, power consumed, power drawn from the supply, that is only 2 watts. The wattmeter it is reading 100 watts, but the power consumed from the supply E1, that is 2 watts. What will be the power consumed in this side? 100 squared V squared, that means 100 squared divided by the resistance of this voltmeter, which is very high. 100 watts divided by the resistance of this complete resistance of this volt box. All these resistances are very high. The resistance of the voltmeter, the resistance of the volt ratio box, the resistance of this potential coil circuit. So 100 squared divided by RV plus 100 squared divided by this RVB plus 100 squared divided by RPC. All these wattage will be quite small. So the total power consumed from the two supplies, it's way below 100 watts, way below, much less than 100 watts. So that is the advantage. You don't consume large power. Often students give long answer that phantom loading will reduce the power loss in the current coil, etc. That will not happen. At the same supply voltage of 100 volts for this wattmeter, whether you use a physical load or whether you use a phantom load, the current through the current coil has to be 1 ampere so that the reading is 100 watts. The current through the current coil should be 0.5 amperes so that the wattmeter reads 50 watts, like that. So the current through the current coil will be same in both the cases if the supply voltage is at that rated value. In our case, it's 100 volts. In some cases, it can be as high as 600 volts. Anyway, so this is why you use phantom loading. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Now come to this case, you may ask me why by setting the wattmeter to this value, to this particular value, we are measuring, or come back to this case. You wonder that why we are measuring this voltage V1 repeatedly. Because I have labeled this DC power supply for voltage circuit as a stabilized supply. So it is meant that the voltage across the potential coil circuit will be 100 volts. or even if it is 101 volts, it should remain at 101 volts throughout the experiment. Then why are we measuring V1 repeatedly for every reading of wattmeter? That is because although I am labeling it as a DC stabilized DC power supply, there will be some fluctuation. All right. So instead of 100 volts, it can sometimes be 100.5 volts or 99.8 volts, like that. When we are interested in very accurate measurement, we have to measure V1 again and again whenever we introduce a change in the current to the current coil. So what is the procedure here? You connect these voltage sources. First of all, the first procedure is that you go to the experimental setup and find out whether the wattmeter, no supply is turned on. Without turning on any supply, try to find out whether the wattmeter is reading 0 watt or not. 0 watt or not. If it is not reading 0 watt, there is a screw for zero adjustment on the casing of the wattmeter. That has to be adjusted to bring the pointer to 0 watt mark. That means you are ensuring that at 0 watt, there is no error of the wattmeter. At 0 watt reading of the wattmeter, the percentage error is 0. That you are enforcing. So that is the first part. Second is you turn on the stabilized DC supply, or you just turn on this, supplies E2. E2 is the working supply of this wattmeter. This supply is E2. That supply, I have labeled it as working battery. Actually, it's not battery nowadays, it's electronic supply. That supply is E2. So when you switch on E2, keep it switched on for about 15 minutes. So you don't take any reading for 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. What will happen? These potentiometer resistances, all these resistances, they will get warmed up, and ultimately their resistance values will get stabilized. They will get stabilized. So all these measures are to be taken for ensuring a highly accurate measurement. So then what do you do? 0 watt, you have that 0 adjustment you have done. Now you standardize the potentiometer. You put on the standard cell, connect the standard cell. Remember, just one thing is very important. I have talked about the temperature correction of standard cell voltage. So that is related to the, primitive standard cell, which is actually a cell. But nowadays there are electronic versions of the standard cell. Although I should confess that those electronic versions are not very good, not as good as original standard cell. Anyway, so in our lab, we are using an electronic version of the standard cell. Please note it down. So there, this temperature correction is not necessary. So standard cell is connected here. Then what do? You carry out first the standardization process. Standardization process means you have connected the standard cell by switching on the rheostat here, the selector switch here, and now you adjust these rheostats, position of these rheostats, so that ultimately the galvanometer indicates null. So that is the standardization process that is done. Once the standardization process is done, now it's time for the measurement. So you set this so far as our experiment is concerned, you set this value of the wattmeter. How do you set that? By adjusting this rheostat. Voltage is remaining at about 100 volts. You adjust this rheostat. Ensure that the current is 0.2 ampere as read from this ammeter. 0.2 ampere means it is simply read from this ammeter. Although it's true that that is not necessary. You have to adjust the rheostat until the wattmeter reaches 20 watts. Until the wattmeter reaches 20 watt. So when the wattmeter reaches 20 watt, you keep it there. You measure this voltage V1. You measure this voltage V2. V1 into multiplying factor of the voltage ratio box will give you the supply voltage. V2 divided by this resistance R1 or R whatever it may be, to get the current, accurate measurement, exact value of the current, multiply those two to get the true wattage. Now observed wattmeter reading is 20 watt. You get the true wattage maybe as 20.18 or as 19.62, like that. You calculate the error. So this is the procedure. You carry out measurements at, just see here, 20 watt, 40 watt, 60 watt, 80 watt, 100 watt. We have skipped some important voltage markings. Markings were there at 10 watt, 20 watt, 30 watt, 40 watt, where we have skipped those 10 watt, 30 watt, all these things. All right. Now see, there are two types of reading considered here, with link and without link. With link means we have shorted the plus minus marked terminals of potential coil and current coil circuit. Under that condition, we have carried out measurement. We will take another measurement with this link disconnected. All right, with this link disconnected. So then, what will be the effect? Why do we apprehend? Why do we apprehend? Because you are asked to find, carry out the experiment with link and without link. There must have been certain apprehension that the errors in the wattmeter reading, they may be different with link and without link, isn't it? Otherwise, we wouldn't have asked you to carry out experiment with link and without link. Isn't that so? So why do we apprehend that there may be a difference? Now think in this way, forget about the link. The link is not connected here. Under that condition, the potential coil circuit, it will be at some electric potential with respect to ground. The current coil, it will be at some electric potential with respect to ground. So two objects, the potential coil circuit and this current coil, they are at two different electric potentials. Therefore, for these two objects, there will be a Coulombian force of interaction. Electrostatic force of interaction will take place. So a spurious torque will also act on this potential coil, the movable coil. It will depend whether it will aid the actual deflecting torque or oppose the actual deflecting torque. It will depend on the relative potentials of these two objects. So one thing is sure, that in absence of the link, that some spurious torque will be exerted on the potential coil. So to eliminate that spurious torque, what will be the ideal case? Forget about wattmeter, etc. To bring the two objects to same electric potential. But how would you do that? You have no access to the potential coil as such, that is inside the casing. Current coil is also inside the casing. You only have access to the terminals of the potential coil circuit and terminals of the current coil. So if you just short those two terminals, now what will happen? Only one end of potential coil and one end of the current coil have been brought to the exact potential, same potential. What about the remaining portion? First of all, come to the current coil. Resistance of current coil is very, very low. So potential difference between the plus minus marked end and the other end of the current coil, that is extremely low. So we may say that the potential drop across the current coil, that is low. What about the potential coil proper? Not this resistance. This 100 volts that we have applied for our wattmeter, if we come to our wattmeter, it can be 100 volts is there. For other wattmeters, it can be 150 volts, etc., 600 volts. Of that applied voltage, a substantial amount of voltage is dropped across this resistance, series resistance. All right. So the potential drop across the potential coil proper, that is not 100 volts, far below 100 volts. Therefore, by shorting one end of the potential coil and one end of the current coil and ensuring, and because of the observations that we have made, the potential coil proper and the current coil, they are almost at like potentials. Close potential difference between the potential coil and the current coil. The potential difference between the two, that becomes less compared to the case if the link is not present. So that is the reason. If you had connected the link instead of those two terminals, if you have connected the link here, what would have happened on the other side? What would have happened? Will the thing work? What means whatever I have explanation I have given, whether the explanations will be valid or not. কি আসছে বলো তো দেরিতে? Think over that matter. Tell me, but you may ask me, sir, whenever we use wattmeter, we short the plus minus mark terminal as I have shown earlier. You may ask me that. Then why do you bother about the case without link? This is a logical question. There may be certain applications where you may come across such a situation. As for example, can you cite one example? Where no end of the current and potential coils are shorted. Very simple example is there. You have studied it. Think about measurement of reactive power in a three-phase circuit by using a single wattmeter, balanced three-phase circuit. Do you remember what is the coil connection? Where are the coils placed? Say if the three lines are RYB, suppose the current coil is connected in series, inserted in series in the line R, then the potential coil has to be connected between Y and B, isn't it? মনে পড়েছে নাকি?
Yes, sir.
So then you don't short the two terminals. So there can be other cases also. So that is the reason. Here you can see that this resistive element, the standard resistance across which we measure the voltage V2. Remember that V2 has to be measured. When you measure V2, this resistance value is 0.1 ohm. So when this current coil, for example, is carrying even 1 ampere. The voltage drop is of the order of V2 is of the order of 0.1 volt, isn't it? So for measuring 0.1 volt, you have to change the selector switch position to 0.1. The selector switch position, it has to be changed to 0.1. It is a low voltage, so that the dial markings, some of the dial markings has to be multiplied by this 0.1. So that resistance across which we are measuring the voltage V2, that resistance. You can see here that there are 4 terminals. Why? Why are there 4 terminals?
Sir, 2 current.
Bolo, bolo. So what? So what? Why? Why?
That to avoid the contact resistances.
Yes, that is true. So to eliminate the errors due to contact and lead resistances, low valued resistances are as a rule provided with 4 terminals. Those terminals P1 and P2, they shouldn't have been shown there, but P1 should have been here, P2 should have been here. That is the proper way. Unless that is done, your intention will not be clear. So current leads in and leads out through the current terminals, and the voltage is measured between P1 and P2. So P1 is here, P2 is there. Therefore, there are contacts at P1 and P2. Contact resistance will also form at P1 and P2. Why shouldn't they cause any error? It is because now through those contacts, the current that is flowing is the current drawn by the potentiometer. And under null condition, it's extremely low, ideally 0. So at those contact resistances of P1 and P2, and also the resistances of these connecting leads, the voltage drop is 0, negligibly small. So that is the reason. So not merely providing 4 terminals to low valued resistances will solve your problem, but the connections that are to be taken from the potential terminals, they should be taken to some high resistance device, or yes, high resistance device. The potentiometer doesn't draw any current, ideally means its internal resistance is very, very high. That is the implication. Another way of putting the thing. So that is the thing. Now, I will provide you with this data sheet, and these are blank. Just see. These are blank. So you have to fill up this part. You have to give in your report sheet, you have to give the circuit diagram, the list of apparatus without rating. The list of apparatus you have to find out from this. As for example, stabilized DC voltage source. This is one apparatus. 1 voltmeter is here. 1 ammeter is there. All right. A voltage ratio box. The wattmeter itself. A standard low valued resistance. I have mentioned the rating is 0.1 ohm, 15 ampere. DC potentiometer is another thing. D'Arsonval galvanometer. And this is electronic supply. Don't write it as simply standard cell, write it as electronic version of standard cell. And you have to complete this table. Then what you have to do, you have to give the calibration plots. How do you compute the errors? W0 minus WT, observed wattmeter reading minus true wattmeter reading, divided by full scale reading of wattmeter. Full scale reading of wattmeter is 100 watt here. All right. Just see that here the reading start from 0 wattmeter reading. We have ensured that all these values, they are 0. So in both the cases, you have to give two plots, one with link, another plot for without link. So if that is the case, and both these plots should start from 0 value, the origin. On the x-axis, you should have the observed wattmeter reading. On the y-axis, you should have the percentage error. Now this dynamometer type wattmeter, we have calibrated it using DC potentiometer, DC supply. What type of wattmeter is used in AC circuits? In AC circuits, what type of wattmeter is used? What type of instrument? Can this particular wattmeter be used for AC circuit? This type of wattmeter can be used both in AC and DC circuit. We have calibrated it using DC source supply and DC potentiometer. Will the calibrations be valid when the wattmeter is also used in AC circuits? Will the calibrations be valid?
Sir, I think somewhat different.
What is the source of extra error in AC or less error in AC? If you go through the theory of these electrodynamic wattmeters, you will find that the potential coil circuit, it has to be purely resistive. That is what we desire ideally. For DC, it's fine. There is a high valued resistance. For DC, it's fine. The inductance of the coil will have no effect. But when you use this wattmeter for AC circuit, what will happen? The inductance of this potential coil will come into play. So, although we have connected a very high valued resistance, as a whole, it will deviate to a certain extent from a pure resistance. So then what is done is that we connect a capacitor across a portion of this series resistance. We connect a capacitor across a portion of the series resistance, and by adjusting that value of the capacitor, we ensure that this entire combination, the potential coil proper, the resistance with a portion of the resistance shunted by a capacitor, this complete thing acts as a purely resistive circuit. That is for use in AC circuits. All right, that is the compensation that is used. So now, if you have any question, you may.
So that means we have to draw two calibration curves, one for with link and one
Same
for
figure,
without
yes.
link.
What will be the, how will you have located the points, suppose. Now, how will you proceed with the drawing of the calibration curve? You have located the points. After that, how will you proceed? How will you complete the curve?
Sir, adjacent points should be joined with straight lines.
Why? Why can't we draw a smooth curve? In your final year class, when you will perform the testing of CT and PT, there the calibration curves that you plot, they are smooth curves. But here a definite instruction has been given to you. Draw a calibration curve showing percentage error versus wattmeter reading. The plot should start from the origin and adjacent points should be joined by straight lines. Why is it so? It is because the errors that you will obtain, the variation of error across the scale of the instrument, that variation is random in nature. Say you take one complete set of measurements, you will find out some error points. If you repeat it, there will be another set of error points. So you cannot say with certainty that what will be the smooth nature of the curve. It is random in nature. So that's why you are joining the adjacent points by straight lines, indicating that over such a small region, what is the trend of the error? That is simply the thing that you want to show when you join adjacent points using straight lines. Only the trend of the error. All right. But you cannot say with certainty that what will be the value. So that is the reason. Do you have any other question?
স্যার তাহলে কি মানে একটা গ্রাফ পেপারের মধ্যেই দুটো কার্ভকে ড্র করব না দুটো আলাদা পেপারে ড্র করব?
চাইলে দুটো আলাদা কার্ভ দিতে পারো, কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
আচ্ছা,
একটা দিলে কম্পেয়ার করাটা সোজা।
ঠিক আছে।
So I will send you this report, this blank, report sheet with certain portions blank, and you have to submit the report within 7 days. If I send it to you tomorrow, if I send it to you today, by next Wednesday, you have to submit the report sheet. If I send it tomorrow, by next Thursday, you have to submit the report sheet, like that. Have you understood what is your task? বুঝতে পেরেছো তো?
Yes, sir.
আর কি কিছু বলার আছে আমার? This is the era of digital instruments. So why are we bothering about these analog instruments so much? That is because the analog instruments cannot be completely rejected at any point of time. For example, I worked in a certain project, in a certain department. There we had a complete setup, different panels brought from Toshiba Corporation, Japan. So all the voltmeters, they were digital voltmeters, with the exception of one voltmeter, which indicated the vacuum pressure of a certain system. The vacuum pressure ranged from 10 to the power minus 3 to 10 to the power minus 4 to as low as 10 to the power minus 8 millimeter of mercury. So what is the intention of using an analog meter? In a control room or whatever it may be, to monitor the trend of a variable, whether it is trying to decrease or whether it is trying to increase. That thing is very conveniently displayed by analog meters. If you have a sudden look at a digital meter, you cannot say with certainty that it's increasing or decreasing like that. So that trend can be exactly, there may be in digital meters, there may be pickup due to noise, etc. All these things. There is a random fluctuation can also be there, which is not there in case of analog meters. All right. Okay. So all of you have entered your roll numbers in the chat box, I think. If anyone hasn't done it, please do it right now. And if you don't have any question, you are feel free to ask any question. How many have turned up? কতজন এসেছিল? এখন তো 34 জন দেখছি। আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে। Okay, so I am logging out. কেউ বাকি থাকলে লেখো চ্যাট বক্সে রোল নাম্বার।